Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Rewriting the Narrative. Mare, how are you this morning? Afternoon? Oh my God.
It's afternoon.
It is the afternoon. We are going to be talking about sleep and sleep hygiene today. And I think in my head, I was thinking, well, like that starts with what you do in the morning. And now I have circadian rhythm on my mind. So here we are.
Yeah, well, I can definitely say, even though we are in the afternoon, I am looking forward to kind of winding down and having a slower day, slower evening. My hubby is working, so that is a little bit of a bummer. It's always kind of nice just to have a normal night, but this weekend he's gonna be out and about till the wee hours of the morning. So yeah, so it'll be kind of just a little bit of a different routine, which isn't bad. Just kind of throws things off a little bit.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. It was definitely craving a slower weekend just after the last few being not slow at all. It was like, oh, like we got one on the calendar that I don't really have anything planned, or anywhere to have to be or an outfit to plan.
I know. Did you train today?
I did not. I went for a run this morning and it was nice because I was able to actually sleep in a little bit because Florida, I always feel like a dork saying this to you, but Florida got a little bit of a cool front. So the morning temp, I think it was like 55 or something. So a
That's
little bit more
chilly.
tolerable than you know, if I were to start that same run at, 9 o'clock another day, it would be, boiling pretty fast. So,
Yeah, no, that's still pretty chilly because when I was down there a couple of weeks ago, I think the first morning there, it was chilly like that, which was kind of like, what? What's going on? But it still felt very refreshing and really good. Yeah, I actually enjoyed sleeping in a little bit this morning. We are fur baby sitting right now, so we have a young girl that likes to get up early, which is fine, but she was very tired. It was kind of crazy this morning. I just kind of like looked at the end of the bed. I was like, where is she? And she was there just snoring away. So the whole household wanted to sleep in today, which was nice. And the gym wasn't crowded. I did lift today, which I like that. And the gym wasn't crowded. It was really nice. Yeah, had another good lift today, so that was nice.
solid. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, I had an idea actually. That's why I love my runs with just music or sometimes even nothing. But I was thinking about how I wanted to start this episode and I'm going to put you on the spot, but I'm going to put me on the spot too.
Okay.
So, if you had to say one or two things that are like your kryptonite when it comes to something or a habit or something your body does that impacts your sleep and your ability to either fall or stay asleep, what is it?
Like something that's negatively impacts.
Yeah, okay, let's do both. Let's do what is your kryptonite? So what
Okay.
is your weakness, the thing that just gets you. And what is you're like, okay, I know if I do X, I'm gonna have some good sleep.
Oh man. If I can step away from the computer, I'm gonna say early. That's like a huge thing for me. If I can get away from the computer, no social media, if I can be
Okay,
off with,
define early because
okay.
the listeners want to know.
Yeah, so I'm gonna say if I can get away from, and when I say social media, that I say that like from a work perspective. So if I can get away from social media and my email, honestly, I'm gonna say a great night, like 7, and fully be able to put it to the side. And if I can like take an evening walk, like that to me, like it's like washing my hands, it's like taking a shower, it's like it just closes the door into just like my time, my sanctuary. Like that's like the period, like the perfect period at the end of a day. If I can get away from work things, which is hard because as you and I both know, we turn up and we get excited and we just can go. We blink and it's like 3 hours. But if I can put things away at a good time at like 7 p.m., get my butt outside for a good walk, and again, I don't have to listen to anything. Same thing as you. Like for me, silence has been gold
Especially
lately.
at night. Especially at
Yeah.
night.
Yeah, that is the period at the end of my day. It's going to be a great night. Absolutely.
Okay, and then what always suckers you in and you're like, damn it, I know I shouldn't have done that when you wake up the next morning and are like, I didn't have a good night of sleep?
I'm going to say the one more thing. When I do say, I'm going to just do this one more thing, or my brain's like, oh, I should, go look into this and figure it, like, it's always those one more things that never serve me. And something actually early in the day it doesn't serve me is if I have caffeine too late. It seems like it's always like, it seems like a great idea at the time, but and it's like the best hit, but man, it really affects me like bad.
Well, I'll take the wheel because I would say that is probably my kryptonite. I can get away with it if it's like 3 p.m., but after 4, we're pushing that limit as far as it impacting my sleep. Or I think more so it drives me to work later and just have more ideas later and whatnot, and impacts my ability to wind down. And then I would say close second, I still fall into the doom scrolling. Like, it's not even doom scrolling. It's like, I'm going to read my horoscope. Yeah. Or, like stupid things like that. Or like, oh, I kind of want to bookmark that to look at tomorrow or whatever. And it's like, no, like your phone should not be in your face right now when you're lying in bed. So those are like, I go in waves with that, but recently in a wave of doing that, and it does not serve my sleep. I would say what I know is going to help me wind down is I don't want to steal yours because that's definitely mine too, is like that quiet night, like a walk, no phone, or at least no music or, podcast or whatever. And then like a good, like, long like stretch, kind of like breath work along with that before a hot shower. That is like always gonna help me wind down. I also really like I don't know what the right word is. It's like, so do you know what a body gua sha is?
I have no idea what that is.
It's a little like woo, but like if I take a hot shower and use it's the Neutrogena scentless oil, and I use that and this body gua sha tool, and I do a little lymphatic.
I know what it means.
Yeah. So that plus like that evening routine, like always have a good night of sleep. Or castor oil pack along those lines. If I do the castor oil pack at night, which I've been slack-a-lacking on, so I need to look into that again, as far as just a routine thing. If I sleep in it, it makes your bed sheets kind of like oily, so like that's why I like to time it on night that we're gonna like do the wash the sheets in the morning. But those two things are awesome, and I don't want to keep rattling on too much, but I wanted to kind of start with this because, one, the point isn't to have perfect sleep every night for the rest of your life and always get, I don't even know what the percentages are off the top of my head, but like, 20% REM and, 40% deep or whatever. I think I might have that backward, but that is like not the goal. It's about like feeling well rested, on average, getting, 7 to 9 hours a night, and knowing maybe what your kryptonite is, and then also knowing like, okay, what things do help me like get my best night of sleep. And that, I mean, even starts with like looking at like your morning routine and routines as a whole, which, I don't know how you want to start with this, but I think a lot of people think like sleep, like my sleep sucks, like what does my nighttime routine look like? Well, it's not just that. It's, because if your sleep is poor, it can definitely just be a sign of an evening routine thing. But it also can be your body reacting, to, our habits, and that impacting your physiology, and that disruption causing poor sleep. So, okay, Sarah, what does that mean? Well, like, let's use an example of a female who is not consistently ovulating. We know we need progesterone levels. We want pretty robust progesterone levels to really support good sleep, estrogen as well. But again, I'm just using this as an example. If we're not ovulating, it's probably related to multiple factors. So addressing those factors and looking at, maybe it's nutrition, eating more. Maybe it is, a stress thing. Maybe it is alcohol, that it is impacting your hormonal health. And in turn, that's impacting your poor sleep. And it's definitely like chicken or the egg in a lot of situations as well. But yeah, I mean, I don't know where you want to kind of segue from there, but those are like kind of some things that I think about when someone says they have poor sleep is like, I'm thinking immediately evening routine kind of stuff, like circadian rhythm. But then I'm also thinking more globally, like what else is going on, like blood sugar, issues, poor nutrient status, etc.
Absolutely. I think that that's probably the next, like, again, we start big on starting at foundations, and I think that we really want to kind of start, I'm not saying like checking things off as if they're done and don't matter, but crossing through things so that we know are stable. And blood sugar is like a big one. When we have somebody that maybe is not eating consistently or eating at all during the day because they're like, I think, maybe use this example earlier as another call maybe. About somebody who's like, chronically dieting, and maybe they're not eating during the day, but then they have this like really big meal at night and their blood sugar raises and then it crashes. And then in the middle of the night, they're waking up and they're thinking their sleep is disrupted, and it's their body's actually just showing up because their body detected that blood sugar crash and thinks that they went hypoglycemic when they didn't. And so they're waking up on adrenaline. So I think that that's like one thing that can make a really big difference, is making sure that somebody is eating well-rounded meals through the day. Now, that changes, as we know, whether it's 3 meals or 5 meals. I think that has to be there's no magic bullet. It's really dependent on the human being, their schedule, their ability to chew their food, etc. But I think that that's a big one that a lot of people really miss out on, is stable blood sugar through the day. And that doesn't mean avoiding carbs or anything like that. But I think that's a big one that can really impact somebody's sleep, just for the reasons I said, with actually what you said, the circadian rhythm, and then the, raise in adrenaline, cortisol dumping in midnight, waking them up, and then they say, I have to go to the bathroom. And it's like, actually, you woke up and then we're like, maybe I need to go to the bathroom.
Yeah. Let's go back to that, though, circadian rhythm stuff, and starting with, let's start with evening routine and then let's go morning routine. But when we think about circadian rhythm, I always like to think about light dark, like that's kind of following like that cycle as much as possible. So sleep hygiene, we have an entire guide on our website under resources. You'll see there's a bunch of free ones, but sleep hygiene is one of those, and we have a bunch of different tips. But something as simple as keeping the house darker, or turning your phone on night mode, if you do have to be, working later, or, inevitably going to find yourself on the phone, before bed. Just like little things like that can really go a long way to just kind of like start lowering that nervous system activity. But, staying away from like bright light for sure is going to be, a huge one. And I know it's like things that like we hear all the time, but just like noticing where I can make those tweaks in the house, maybe it's lighting a candle, instead of having like the full on overhead lights, on, for example.
Yeah. And what's interesting is like, is that as you say that, I think about, I was actually reflecting on my time when I was down south in Florida versus here, and just the light of day, like as far as north to south, that's actually really impactful. And this is where you hear about people with like, seasonal depressive disorder. I probably butchered that, but I think everyone understands what I mean. And then that also with regards to trying to figure out that circadian rhythm, like it can really mess a lot of people up, especially when, we lose like our sunshine, like it's like pitch black by 4 p.m., right? And so you're having all the lights on in your house trying to wake up. And I do have clients, they'll tell me, they're like, I'm tired around 6 p.m. I'm like, well, arguably, like, I think that's kind of normal to start winding down.
Yeah, well, and that's hard too, like thinking like summer, winter, like this is where like I'll go back to what I said at the beginning about like we aren't after perfect. We're just after like helping you feel your best and helping you be your best. And I do think that humans naturally, again, we're supposed to have this circadian rhythm that our bodies follow. Well, I think naturally we're supposed to wind down a little earlier in the winter, right? We're
Yeah.
supposed to sleep a little bit more. We're not bears, but we're gonna,
Right.
quote, hibernate. And in the summer, we're going to be up a little bit later, with the sun, and, we're going to have more energy. So I think I know a lot of women, because we talk to a lot of women every single week, fall into these shoulds of like, oh, I'm so tired, like, or I shouldn't be tired. I should be, more energized. I'm struggling to get out of bed. And we know it because, again, we talk to, 30, 40 women a week. We can be like, girl, no, you and, 6 other people, this week. Like, it's not just you. It's, we just had a time change, or, there was a full moon, or whatever it is, it's not just you. And it doesn't automatically mean like something's wrong with you or you're a bad person. It's just like opportunities to create awareness. Because I mean, yeah, like most of us do feel our best getting around that 8 hours, a night. So maybe we do have to double down on certain habits and behaviors, or invest in different things. Like, I'm jumping around now, but, a happy light, would be a great thing to invest in. I mean, they're like, what, $40 for, you want something that's 10,000 lux?
Yeah.
You want something that's like a 10,000 lux as far as if you just search Happy Light on Amazon, you'll see there's a bunch of different options. And Mare and I are always telling clients to, like, when you're doing your morning routine, putting your makeup on, just like having that, in front of your face as a way to kind of mimic the sun first thing in the morning is a great way to kind of set that circadian rhythm. And you can do it, in the afternoon as well, if you are feeling like slumpy, in those winter months. And then, let yourself be in the dark, when it's time to start winding down. And if you are struggling with sleep, I do like to suggest, if possible, just giving yourself more time than maybe you think as far as that wind down. So like, maybe like if you're in a good spot, you need like an hour or so to wind down. But maybe you give yourself 2 hours. And that's not to say that we start this elaborate evening routine 2 hours before bed, but we start taking those extra steps, like keeping the house darker. I'm going to just use an example. It's not personal at all, but we ask our husbands to lower the volume on the TV and not have the house booming because we're trying to lower the nervous system activity.
Yeah.
Maybe we don't watch crime shows, Mare.
Yeah. Yeah, not a thing. Probably should not do that in the evening or Mobland. Just saying.
No drug cartel people up in a million pieces.
That is my vibe. In case anybody doesn't know, I love that stuff.
Yeah, don't try to pay, like, it's tax season, right? Like, ideally, like, set some time earlier in the day or even on a weekend, to work on that instead of doing it right before bed. Or don't pick a fight, with your significant other right before bed. Don't go to bed angry if you can help it. But, it's like those little things just to help you kind of lower that nervous system activity.
Yeah, I think that one thing you touched on, but I want to highlight too, is like, we definitely, all the shoulds. And I think that another thing that we can think about when trying to help our sleep, and this is gonna kind of cross over into just overall fatigue, because if someone's fatigued, we're wondering if they're having good sleep, but maybe leaning into it. I think that a lot of people with the shoulds, it's like, well, I should be doing this, I should be, with my kids or whatnot. And this is where I have, my clients audit. I'm like, what can you really get done in a day? Like, I'm like, and I tell them, I say to do the same thing I do. I'm like, I want you to actually physically put on your calendar folding the laundry. I need you to put that on a calendar so you can physically see what all the things that you are subscribing to do. And I'm not saying don't do your laundry or don't feed your kids or go to the grocery store, but I was like, I think that if you start writing it down and allocating the time for it, you're going to see that maybe perhaps this is part of that problem with regards to the wind down, is because that is the time where you feel like the house is quiet and now it's go time. And you actually gave a really good example, and I think it was on one of our mentorship calls, where I think it was you had a client that her kind of wind down evening routine was turning off the TV, not being on the couch when the kids, are going to sleep. Instead, she started folding laundry and just kind of listening to a podcast or something like that, because it was away from the screen. And she said it was just enough to like calm her down, make her present. I can't remember. I'm pretty sure it was you.
Yeah, no, this is an example of a client, and like, this is, a great example of maybe like somebody who was shitting on themselves, being like, oh, I should be reading a book or watching something with my husband. But it's like, if this genuinely is helping you wind down and helps you check the box, like what works for me isn't going to work for Mare necessarily, even though we have some similar like practices and whatnot. Like if I watched any show like that before bed, like no, like absolutely not, like would not happen. You know, is Mare gonna do a, you know, body gua sha, you know, before bed? Like maybe that's not her thing, you know, and that's cool. Like
I think that would probably be our differences. That would be like a hard no to me. I'd be like, no. But a warm evening shower, absolutely. Like
I'm a big fan of, okay, so like let's go back to some of the practices. Like I'm always telling my clients, especially allergy season, take a hot shower before bed. Or, you know, late evening. One, the hot shower, it helps cool your core body temperature, and that's going to help you fall asleep and stay asleep a little bit better. Just being a little bit cooler at night. So that also brings us to having, you know, the house a little bit cooler, fans, you know, using light sheets, sleeping naked, or, you know, like I'm sort of kidding, but, you know, sleeping with like light clothing on. And that's huge. And then like allergy season, like any like, you know, pollen, dander, dirt, like we track a lot of that stuff in, even if we take our shoes off, you know, and all that. So just doing a rinse off, you know, before bed, you know, is huge. So I'm really big on that because I mean, it actually like it has double benefits then, right? Like I'm big on the double benefits, like kill one bird or kill two birds with one stone. Yeah. That's what I'm big on. Sorry, birds.
Yeah. You actually mentioned before about alcohol, and that's something that we could maybe touch on briefly.
Did you see my eye roll?
That a lot of people...
Coach, it helps me sleep.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. Is like they think that it helps them sleep. Alcohol, and another one that's, you know, pretty popular is using some sort of THC, whether that's a gummy, an edible, or if people are vaping or smoking or whatever it is, depending on what country and part of the country you live in. But that's a big one that I have heard, probably the THC one more and more. And although Sarah and I can make an argument for, you know, a THC CBD combo and the, you know, cannabinoid system, and I probably mispronounced that, but by and large, it's not going to actually improve the quality of your sleep, especially that alcohol piece, or even in the THC piece, is it will and can delay that REM. And so this is where somebody who says that it helps them fall asleep, but then arguably, like when you wake up, that person's probably going to feel pretty groggy because that quality of sleep just wasn't there. So that's a big one that I understand is a social thing, but being social about it is very different than using it, I'm going to say it, as a crutch. That is a problem. So I would say that arguably there's a ton of other things out there. And if you're having to go to alcohol or THC and you're having that much of a difficulty sleeping, arguably there's so many other levers that we can pull before that.
Absolutely. Like I would rather have somebody do melatonin, you know, a good... My big thing with melatonin is not that I'm not anti-melatonin at all. I think melatonin has a lot of benefits, especially... you know, if you are struggling with your sleep, and then it has a lot of just antioxidant benefits, immune health, you know, etc. Potentially. My big thing is, and don't quote me, but some of the recent kind of just studies and data coming out on products that people are buying at like just their local drugstore are wildly inaccurate, or there's major discrepancies, like from what is in each pill or gummy and then what the bottle says it has. So like, for example, like say you think you're having 2 milligrams, maybe one gummy has 6 and then another has 0.5 or none at all. And they, you know, have been doing some, you know, just, you know, testing, you know, so you always want to get like third party, you know, tested stuff. And you really don't need a lot, like 0.5 milligram could be a great like dose. Like I don't, you know, mean to plug, but Legion, you know, my husband Mike has been using Lunar sleep aid, and it has 0.5 milligram or microgram. Oh my God. Milligram. Sorry, Legion. I'm going to have to double check on that, but it has like just a little bit, but it has other things in it like GABA. So like I would rather somebody reach for maybe L-theanine or GABA, or most of our clients are taking magnesium, you know, in the evening, but something like that and see, hey, like maybe like this is going to benefit us, and it's going to maybe have other benefits, outside of helping you sleep, to implement, certain supplements and whatnot. So yeah, like that could be a good switch, or a tea, herbal tea is like, no, like I just made a reel on this. Our herbal tea is going to change your life. Like probably not, but doing like a sleepy time or a chamomile or something with like valerian, root, in it before bed. There's so many different blends out there. It could be a great option.
Yeah, and all this to say, and all this to get back to is saying that we are not suggesting that, again, you're adding in supplements and not addressing your lifestyle stuff. Like, honestly, I'm going to say it, like, if this matters to you, you're going to create the foundations, and you're going to make some changes, communicate with those in your household what you need. Again, like, we're not creating this perfect kumbaya where you lay on your EMF mat and then you do your, whatever therapy in some red light sauna for an hour. Like, you can't do that. Like, not everybody can, at least, especially if you have a family. But what we are saying is, let's, do the effort, make the effort to things we can do. Like, you don't need to be watching Netflix until 11 p.m. Like, you don't. So those are some small things that you can do prior to or in conjunction to adding in some supplementation. The other thing that maybe we want to talk about is actual changes, and you mentioned this in the beginning with regards to, times in a female cycle, whether that's even like postpartum, a woman going through, especially actually the example like amenorrhea. All of those can be specific cases, especially when it comes down to a female's sex hormones, that those can be contributing factors to poor sleep. Like you said, with really low progesterone, when estrogen is low, it's going to affect serotonin. It's going to be affecting the production of melatonin. And so those can be, again, really important. Where are we wanting to go to the store and grab like hammering melatonin gummies, or are we going to make sure that all systems are a go, like all systems are happening? But those are some pretty big cases. If somebody, a PCOS case, low progesterone, like I said, postpartum, when a female has gone, like, arguably her hormones have now gone to, very low levels, sometimes levels of what you would see with somebody who's in menopause for a short time period. And arguably that's the person with a new baby and like doing all the things. Like, talk about nervous system dysregulation right there. But those are some really clear cases. And even a female who is still ovulating and having menstruations, maybe you notice that your sleep becomes a little bit more disrupted, say right before menstruation, and then during menstruation when hormones are arguably at their lowest, and those don't have to be like menopausal levels, or just low for you. Those would be maybe some times that you do want to grab a little bit more magnesium. You do want to grab a little bit, some melatonin, or like Sarah was mentioning, one of those third-party supplement, something like Legion, that's just a little bit, kind of helps tip the scale in a positive direction for you. But those are definitely some times looking at a woman's where she is in her life cycle, her hormone profile, and health history is definitely something we see.
Totally. Yeah, and those are the times maybe to do like, like I use the example of like the castor oil pack or the body gua sha, which I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that one correctly. But, I have a client who, at one point she was a lot more consistent with the castor oil packs and loved them. But now we kind of decided, like, let's just do them. Like, her cycle is actually pretty predictable. So, we know, like, when she's, 5, days out or so from her period starting, she does the castor oil pack like twice, beforehand. And that really helps her sleep, just puts her in a calm environment. Whereas, otherwise, like, she does, tend to have a little trouble, winding down sometimes. So just like kind of paying attention to like things like that work for you. And then there's times that maybe we double down on that. And then even like connecting the dots to like, this could be a whole other conversation. So I don't want to like go too deep, but it came up. We did a Q&A with a group of women connected with a gym. So shout out to our friend Eric at Visualize Fitness up in Long Island, but talking to women about being in that peri or postmenopausal time and noticing a couple things going on, changing in their body. One being poor sleep, and then two being cravings, and struggling more with hunger, and that leading to increased weight gain or midsection belly fat, Well, yes, like those changes to appetite and weight and body fat distribution are partly related to those shifts to hormones. But what else is linked to that? Poor sleep, not getting good quality sleep. That's huge, no matter who you are, male, female, somewhere in between, any age. Poor sleep is going to make you hungrier. It's going to increase your hunger hormone, ghrelin. I like to remember it as ghrelin. And it's going to decrease leptin, which is our satiety hormone. And those shifts are going to make you hungrier. It's going to make you it harder to say no to the snacks. And not only that, it's going to make it harder to make good decisions throughout the day. So just noticing, this is what I always tell my clients, like, okay, you had a poor night of sleep. We have to be a little bit more aware today about, our habits, about our meals. Like maybe we do bump up the fiber a bit at lunch so that we aren't grabbing the chocolates at, work. And again, it's all about just awareness and for better or worse, and then adjusting and pivoting, accordingly. So yeah, I think this is where like, I know people say that like education and knowledge isn't enough. People need to change, and I agree. But I think true learning, true knowledge is taking that information and doing something different, making a different choice. So that's why that's where these podcasts, are coming in. This is why we're, so big on what we do as educators, as well as coaches is, hey, like now we know. And then once we know, we owe it to ourselves to do better.
Yeah, I think that's, I'm listening to and reflecting over just this podcast right now. And this is where it's like, I think that a lot of people are like, hey, give us like the 5 tips for sleep. And it's like me just reflecting over this podcast. I'm like, it's so intertwined to that. I mean, we just talked about like not only the individual as far as like what season of life she is. Does she have kids? Is she a college student? Like, what is actually happening that's affecting her morning to night, right? And all of that. And then hormonally, what's going on. There's a lot of intermix here, and this is where I think it is nice that we're having like these discussions and providing people saying, hey, listen, there's so much that you can do that is free, arguably free, and then 100% like let's start actually looking at some practical things that you may not have control over. And I think it's important to just hold space for that, and then make sure that, like you said, that people are aware of those things too.
Totally. Yeah, like your new mom example. Like we're not going to be like, nah, like not going to wake up to feed the baby, but maybe we're going to adjust our training, and we're going to, really be mindful of, our snack schedule to make sure that we keep our blood sugar balanced, throughout the day. Yeah, there you go. Not that easy, but, just kind of some things to consider.
Yeah. And I think that, I was gonna start talking about gut health and stuff like that. That's probably for another podcast. But
yeah,
something I was gonna mention is I think that comparison thing with looking at what we think people's start to finish of their day looks like via like Instagram and TikTok, and like as you guys heard from Sarah and I, like it's very basic what we do for our, I want to say my morning and my evening routine, which they arguably set each other up. And whatever my morning is sets up my day, and my day sets up my night. And those are probably the 2 times that are very, when you were asking at the very beginning, like what really is like the defining. And for me, it's how I start and how I end my day. And if I do not end my day well, the start of my next day I can do all the things. I can not be, get in my email, not, start work, have my morning walk, but, I will not sleep well if I didn't end well, and then that's going to impact. And so the dominoes keep falling. And I think this is where some people want to just kind of play catch up. And I'm like, you will play catch up, but you just have to start somewhere and start really being consistent. It's not about like, during the week everything going to shit, and then on the weekend you think that I'm going to catch up on sleep, and then that kind of cycle. No, it's about better foundations. That's the catch up.
The body loves consistency, and I'll kind of maybe kind of end on that is ideally, like, 'cause that's a good point. Like, work week versus, or school nights versus, weekends. Um, Aiming to kind of keep your bedtime within and wake time within 30 minutes to an hour of, kind of that consistent ballpark is what I usually, tell people, because let's be realistic, like, we want to sleep in a little bit at least one day, but not having like these drastic swings of like you wake up at 5 a.m. and then you wake up at 9 and then 11, and then try to get back on the 5 a.m. schedule. Or be like 5 a.m., 7 a.m., or going to bed, at all sorts of different times. Like, again, body thrives off consistency, and the more consistent, again, doesn't mean perfect, but the more, kind of we can give it that structure, the more it just works for us in all the ways.
Yeah, I just had a moment thinking of the last time that arguably I felt like I was doing all the right things, but I felt so hungover the next day. And this was actually after your birthday. And I was
my HRV score is always low after being social. And it's
right.
It's like my body
Right.
is like.
So guys, I said I feel hungover, but I need to clarify. There was not
No
one
alcohol.
Had none. Everyone. This is like just being social, because I mean, I think that the reservation was at 6 or 6:30.
Okay, but to be fair, it was also a surprise, and like there was a lot of like you were traveling. But yeah, I talked to Haley that night too, one of our other friends that was there, and like all of us, like she was like, my score is low. I'm like, yeah, dude, I feel like I drank and I had water.
It was crazy. I was like, I feel like I can't hang. Like, I felt so rocked. I mean, I was so hyped and so happy, but I was rocked the next day.
Yeah.
And we weren't out late. Okay, I should clarify. There was no alcohol, and I think that we ended the festivities at like 9.
Right. Like, we're old.
And everybody is wrecked the next day.
Yeah, yeah. This is also a group of, fitness, consistent, like our bodies, that's what I always tell my clients too. I'm like, girl, you treat your body so well all the time that when anything is like you have, fun, and like we kind of forget some of the habits, as we should from time to time. You feel it a little bit more than, average Joe who's used to his standard American diet and melatonin, THC induced sleep.
Yeah, I definitely took some passion flower that night, I will be honest. But my point of this was the next morning, I did not question why I felt some kind of haggard.
Yeah.
I knew that it was just not over socialized, but being way more socially stimulated than I had been in a long time. So
Totally.
Ask yourself that too. Like, if you had a bad night's sleep, did you get woken up by the dog or your kids, or were you out later the night before?
Okay, before we end, listeners, let us know, do you or do you not let the dog sleep in the bed? And if you do, and you tell me you have poor sleep, you need to get the dog out of the frickin' bed. And I know I am just the meanest dog mom for saying that.
No.
No animals in the bed. It's impacting your sleep. I am sorry to be the bearer of bad news. Like, the dogs have dog beds for a reason. I also have an 80-pound German Shepherd, so I acknowledge my handicap there. But regardless, like, I don't care. Get the dogs out of the bed because it will help your sleep.
It's so true. I am the person that constantly like would beg my husband, like especially like if we like had a snuggle puddle, like I would be like, please go get now. Like, we have a queen size guest room mattress, and I was like, please go get the mattress and listen to me. Please bring the mattress down 2 flights of stairs so we can all sleep together. And that man, he loves me so much. Like, whenever he would give in, he would do it. Worst night sleep ever for everybody. Because Theo would be all over us. We'd be moving and hot. It was crazy. And I'll never forget, he would fight me on it. He was like, Mary, I'm not doing it. I'm not getting that mattress. I'm not bringing it down. You're going to sleep like shit. And then you're going to tell me, babe, why did we do that?
For context, guys, Mare had a gorgeous 150-pound Mastiff.
Yeah.
So, hence the queen size mattress. But
body
I'm
pillow.
telling you, the little dogs too, especially the little dogs, because they're all wiggly and stuff. Get them out of bed.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I probably just lost like 12 subscribers of our 15. But speaking of, if you guys enjoy these, be sure to hit like, subscribe wherever you're listening, share it on your stories, and we will let you go. And we'll see you next time. Mare, as always, good chatting with you. I'll chat with you in like probably 5 seconds when we get off
yeah.
this. But yeah, thanks for listening, guys, and we will catch you next time.